What happens when a political firebrand revisits a conspiracy theory? The world thought was long buried. What happens when that figure is Candace Owens? And the subject is none other than France's First Lady Brigitte Macron. Buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into one of the most bizarre and polarizing internet controversies of recent years, one that just got a major revival. Thanks to Owens, this isn't just tabloid gossip. This is a digital storm mixing politics, identity, legacy, and international outrage. And it's all unfolding right in front of us. In her latest video, Candace Owens dropped what she calls an updated hypothesis about Brigitte Macron, and just like that, the internet caught fire. She didn't scream, she didn't rage. She sat calmly, presented what she called inconsistencies, and implied that something is being hidden, carefully, intentionally, and globally. According to Candace, there are questions surrounding the First Lady's timeline, documents, and even appearance. Is there a secret being buried by the French political elite? Or is this just another viral distraction disguised as an expose? Here's the thing. This isn't the first time such a theory has circulated. In fact, back in 2021, a French publication claimed without evidence that Brigitte Macron was born male and transitioned in secret. That theory, deeply offensive and thoroughly debunked, was condemned by mainstream media. Across Europe, Brigitte and Emmanuel Macron themselves threatened legal action, calling the rumors fabricated and hateful. For most, that was the end of the story. But now Candace Owens is breathing new life into it, not by repeating the exact same claims, but by repackaging them. She avoids the direct accusation, instead posing questions that lead her audience to the same controversial conclusion. It's the kind of tactic we see more and more online, not saying something outright, but suggesting it so heavily that the point lands just the same. And make no mistake, when Candace speaks, people listen. So why now? Why in the middle of a tense global political climate would a prominent American conservative commentator turn her attention to France's First Lady? Is this about transparency, as she claims, or is it something else? Let's look at the layers here. Candace starts her video by stating she's not accusing anyone of anything. She's simply asking questions, but those questions aren't innocent. They include statements like, why do so many official records of Brigitte's early life seem incomplete? Why are there differences in old photographs? Why has the French media been so aggressive in silencing conversation about her youth on their own? These may sound like harmless curiosities, but put together, presented the way Candace does, they're clearly meant to build suspicion. She also compares Brigitte's past to other political figures whose identities have been questioned over the years. She mentions historical cases of espionage and even quotes dissident French voices. It's not what she says, it's the implication behind it. She's connecting dots that others have refused to touch. And to many of her followers, this approach makes her seem brave, someone willing to speak the unspeakable. But here's where it gets murky, because while questions are fair, questions with no evidence can become dangerous, especially when they target individuals with real lives, families, reputations, and legal rights. Brigitte Macron isn't just a public figure, she's a woman who has endured intense scrutiny for decades, first as Emmanuel Macron's former teacher, then as his wife and political partner, and now as First Lady. Her unconventional love story with Emmanuel Macron was already a lightning rod for media attention. But this goes beyond curiosity. This veers into a space where reputations can be destroyed by suggestion alone. Let's not forget the original conspiracy theory was based on a fake dossier and altered photograph, and speculations circulated by anti-government activists. France's leading media outlets, including Le Monde, Liberation, and France 24, published thorough investigations debunking the claims. Even human rights organizations condemned it as a targeted attack, rooted in misogyny and transphobia. And yet here we are again. Why? Because Candace Owens knows the power of reopening closed doors. She knows that her audience is hungry for controversy. And perhaps most critically, she knows how to present a theory in just the right tone, calm, composed, analytical, so it doesn't sound like gossip, even though it functions the same way. Now here's what makes it even more complex. She doesn't outright say Brigitte Macron isn't who she claims to be. That's what gives her plausible deniability. Instead, she points to gaps and coincidences and then invites her audience to draw their own conclusions. But anyone familiar with online media knows what that really means. You're handing your followers a puzzle with one obvious answer and daring them to solve it. This approach works incredibly well. In today's algorithm-driven environment, suggestive content outperforms factual content. Speculation spreads faster than truth, and the moment someone challenges the theory, supporters double down and claim censorship. It's a cycle we've seen again and again, from COVID conspiracies to election claims to celebrity scandals. So what's the cost of all this? That's The real question, for Brigitte Macron, it's yet another wave of invasive speculation. For Emmanuel Macron, it's political turbulence at a time when Europe is already dealing with economic pressure, protests, and international conflict. For France as a whole, it's a digital invasion and American media personality throwing gasoline on a fire that France has been trying to put out for years. And for viewers, the cost is confusion, distrust, and the slow erosion of public discourse. When every rumor becomes a question worth asking, when every conspiracy is repackaged as curiosity, it becomes harder and harder to know what's real. This is where we as an audience must pause. Not everything that is said with a calm voice is truth. Not every hypothesis is worth exploring. And not every person who claims to be asking questions is doing so in good faith. Candace Owens may believe she's just peeling back a layer the media ignored, but in reality she's opening a wound that many believe was already healed once stitched shut by facts, evidence, and legal statements. By revisiting it, she's not offering truth. She's offering doubt, and that doubt, when amplified by a massive platform, can become its own kind of harm. So before we dive deeper into the specifics of Candace's claims and the reactions they've provoked, we need to ask, is this really about truth, or is it about attention? Because the truth, real, confirmed, documented truth, isn't usually viral. It doesn't trend. But speculation does. And when speculation gets millions of views, it stops being just a question, it becomes a narrative. And that right there is the power and danger of a platform like Candace Owens. Candace Owens has once again stepped into the global spotlight, this time by revisiting a highly controversial topic that has been simmering online for years: the strange and sensational theory that France's First Lady Brigitte Macron might not be who she claims to be. This isn't the first time the theory has been floated. Conspiracy circles have pushed the idea for years, but Candace's updated take has given it a new level of visibility, prompting global curiosity and backlash alike. In her recent video, Candace outlines what she calls a hypothesis regarding Brigitte Macron's past. She carefully avoids presenting it as fact, instead framing it as unanswered questions the media refuses to explore. According to her, there are alleged inconsistencies in Brigitte Macron's biography, specifically around her early years, her family background, and her transition into public life. The core of the speculation, a claim that Brigitte Macron might have taken the identity of someone else, possibly a deceased relative, and re-emerged under a reconstructed public image. Now, to be very clear, these claims are widely discredited by reputable sources and are not supported by any verified evidence. French media and official records continue to back Brigitte Macron's life story, as it has been reported for years. Yet Candace Owens seems determined to raise questions not so much with hard proof, but with what she describes as patterns, missing documents, and changes in photographs over time. She begins by showing old photos of Brigitte and questioning the changes in her appearance over the years. She compares timelines, draws attention to perceived gaps, and claims certain parts of the First Lady's life are oddly undocumented. For Candace, this is not about gossip, it's about transparency. But is that really what's happening? Here my reaction: honestly, I find this to be a very risky path. It walks the line between curiosity and defamation. And in this case, it's critical to remember that public figures are still people, with families, histories, and rights to privacy. Accusing someone of identity theft based on aesthetic changes or loosely interpreted timelines is an extraordinary claim, and extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So far, Candace hasn't provided any. Candace's updated hypothesis continues by diving deeper into Brigitte's youth. She points to alleged gaps in the records of her early education, alleged inconsistencies in old class photographs, and even discrepancies in how her siblings have referenced her in public interviews. For viewers unfamiliar with the topic, it can sound almost cinematic, a thriller unfolding in plain sight. But for those following closely, it becomes evident that much of the content relies heavily on speculation and selective interpretation. One of Candace's key points involves an old French rumor that Brigitte Macron was born as a male and later transitioned. This rumor has been roundly rejected and labeled false by fact-checkers in France and beyond. Nonetheless, Candace brings it up not as fact but as a circulating theory the mainstream refuses to even acknowledge. She says the silence from the press makes her wonder what's being hidden, or why there's such pushback when questions are asked. But this is where the issue becomes murky. While it's true that free speech includes the right to question and speculate, it also comes with responsibility. In cases like this, even questioning publicly available timelines can trigger massive consequences, both for the people involved and for the broader audience consuming the content. In the French media, this theory has been debunked repeatedly. The Macron family has even taken legal steps against some publications and individuals promoting such theories to frame these questions as merely curiosity or investigative journalism without evidence risks crossing the line into harmful conspiracy. Candace's tone in the video is notably calm. She's not screaming or sensationalizing like some online personalities might, but that makes it even more complex. Her presentation gives the theory a veneer of credibility, and that's exactly why people are reacting so strongly. Critics argue that this type of speculation opens the door to misinformation. Supporters say Candace is simply asking what others are afraid to ask. Personally, I think the danger here lies in how the conversation is framed. When someone with a large platform floats a theory without facts, especially about a public figure, it can create ripple effects that are hard to control. And while Candace insists she's just exploring possibilities, others see it as lending credibility to a narrative rooted in speculation rather than substance. Since Candace Owens dropped this updated hypothesis, French media has been swift in its response. Outlets like Le Monde, Liberation, and others have condemned the resurgence of what they describe as online conspiracies targeting the French First Lady. In fact, Brigitte Macron has already taken legal action in the past against individuals and media sources who circulated false claims about her identity, particularly the claim that she is transgender, a theory that originated from a controversial French far-right journal and has since spread online. So when Candace brought it back into the global discussion, she walked right into a sensitive geopolitical situation, one that involves privacy rights, international defamation laws, and political credibility. In France, this isn't just gossip, it's a potential legal landmine. Candace, on the other hand, seems to be embracing the pushback. She claims the outrage only confirms that she's hit a nerve, and that the establishment wants to silence uncomfortable truths. Her defenders argue she's being targeted not for promoting lies but for daring to be different, someone willing to examine what others dismiss. Still, it's vital to understand that repeating a debunked claim, even under the guise of investigation, can have real-world consequences. Platforms like YouTube X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram have been pressured to remove similar content in the past. And if Candace's video reaches viral levels, it's possible she could face mounting scrutiny, not just from media watchdogs but also legal teams. So what does all this mean for the average viewer? In short, be careful. It's easy to get swept up in controversy, especially when it's presented in such a calculated and compelling way. But we all have a role to play in separating fact from fiction. Just because something could be true doesn't mean we should treat it like it is. And for creators like Candace Owens, the line between questioning power and defaming individuals is razor thin, and it's a line that's now under a global microscope. Now that the dust is settling a bit, I want to offer my personal reflection on the entire situation. First, let me be clear, I support free speech, I support open inquiry, and I support questioning narratives, but I also believe in journalistic responsibility, especially when we're talking about public figures and potentially life-altering accusations. Candace Owens is a skilled communicator. She knows how to present an argument in a way that feels balanced even when the substance lacks verification. Her video walks right up to the edge, asking provocative questions without outright endorsing the theory, but that's precisely what makes it effective and dangerous. It leaves enough ambiguity for audiences to draw extreme conclusions, even if Candace herself never directly says them. Brigitte Macron, for her part, has consistently maintained a dignified silence, except when taking legal action to protect her family and identity. At this point, her public story has been told, retold, and documented. If there were truly something hidden or fraudulent in her identity, it's hard to believe it wouldn't have been exposed by now, especially given how aggressively French and global media scrutinize public figures. For viewers and followers of Candace, I think it's worth reflecting on this. Are we seeking truth? Or are we seeking drama? Are we elevating questions that lead to real discoveries? Or are we just chasing theories because they make for viral content? The internet is an incredible place for open dialogue, but it's also a dangerous echo chamber. When controversial claims are shared without verification, they can spiral fast and even lead to real-world harm. Whether it's damage to reputations, political unrest, or personal trauma for those targeted, the consequences are real. Candace Owens has made her mark by being fearless, but sometimes courage is knowing when not to speak when speculation crosses into territory that can damage people's lives without just cause. So yes, we can all be curious, we can all ask questions, but we also need to remember that the truth isn't always found in the loudest theory. It's found in the facts. As we close this discussion on Candace Owens' updated hypothesis regarding Brigitte Macron, it's important to step back from the whirlwind of speculation and reflect on what this episode really reveals about media influence and the responsibility that comes with having a platform. Candace Owens, known for her bold takes and controversial positions, has once again thrust herself into the global spotlight by revisiting a long-debunked and highly sensitive theory. Her framing of the topic, raising questions rather than outright accusations, creates a strategic loophole. It gives her the appearance of neutrality, of simply seeking answers. However, when the topic at hand involves deeply personal and legally sensitive claims such as identity fraud or gender-based conspiracies about a sitting first lady, the line between inquiry and defamation becomes dangerously thin. The theory that Brigitte Macron may have stolen someone's identity or transitioned from another life or gender has been repeatedly discredited by credible French media and legal institutions. Moreover, the Macrons have previously responded to such claims with legal action, reinforcing that these are not idle rumors, but serious allegations with real consequences. Yet Candace's resurgence of the theory risks reviving misinformation under the guise of freedom to question. This case exposes the broader dilemma of our time. When does free speech become harmful speech? Platforms like YouTube thrive on controversial content. It drives clicks, comments, shares, and creators like Candace know how to use that ecosystem to their advantage. But the collateral damage, especially when the content leans on unproven or discredited ideas, can be profound. It's also essential to consider what this controversy does to the viewer when such theories are introduced with a tone of skepticism rather than fact. It can easily blur the lines in the minds of audiences. Are we listening to responsible journalism, or are we absorbing conspiracies repackaged as bold truths in a world where disinformation spreads faster than facts? This kind of ambiguity can be dangerous. That said, the reaction to Candace's video, both supportive and critical, highlights how deeply polarized public discourse has become. To some, she's a brave truth teller. To others, she's fanning the flames of harmful falsehoods. But regardless of where one stands, one truth remains clear: with great influence comes great responsibility. In the end, the Brigitte Macron identity rumor remains just that, a rumor unsupported by any concrete evidence. And Candace Owens' updated hypothesis, while carefully worded, does little to bring clarity or resolution. Instead, it raises more questions about motive, ethics, and the balance between curiosity and respect. As consumers of media, we must be vigilant. Sensationalism may be entertaining, but truth demands patience, evidence, and integrity. Whether or not Candace's intentions were malicious, the impact of such content is undeniable, and it should serve as a reminder: the louder the claim, the stronger the proof should be. In this case, the noise is deafening, but the facts remain silent.